Welcome to the space between two lines. I'm Alex Saunders, and this is a space for real, honest conversations about fertility, pregnancy loss, and the journey to parenthood. Here, we hear the stories of people navigating the highs, the lows, and everything in between. A place to feel seen, understood, and less alone. Because every story matters, and so does yours. Today's episode is with Miranda. She's been on this journey for 3.5 years. Through 11 rounds of IVF, multiple losses, multiple failed transfers, and 2 doctors, with just 1 live pregnancy along the way. Her story carries heartbreak, strength, and resilience. It's honest, raw, and it's deeply human. And I'm so grateful that she's here to share it with us today. Welcome to the podcast, Miranda. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I'm really excited to be here and talk with you and have some great conversations today.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, or from what I've seen, you've had quite a long, or still are having quite a long fertility journey. So thank you so much for opening up today and being willing to share your story. I know it would be super helpful for others that might be in a similar position.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No problem at all.
Did you want to start by introducing yourself to our listeners and maybe having a chat about what your life looks like at the moment and what's brought you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Miranda. I'm 42, 3. Once again, I'm 40, stop counting, right? Live on the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Gold Coast area, with my partner Mitch and our 10-month-old daughter Elsie and our bulldog Bruce. So we had a 3.5-year fertility journey to get Elsie. So it was 11 rounds of IVF. And then we sort of had the discussion on we've always wanted to grow our family more. So when do we go back and try again? And under the guidance of our doctor, we've gone back and tried again, and we've just had another failed transfer. So we've seen the light at the end of the tunnel and we've got the reward and we're going back again. And unfortunately, we're right back to square one again. So lots to tell you, lots to unpack, I guess.
Sure, we'll deep dive into that more today. But did you want to even just have a chat now about what your life looks like before you and your partner decided that you wanted to have a baby?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mitch and I met each other sort of later in life, I guess. It was nice that we met each other and neither of us had kids, and we both had this desire to want to have kids. At that stage, Mitch was doing international FIFO. So he was based in Zambia. So he was only home for 12 weeks a year. He was 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off. And we'd had the conversations early about wanting to have kids and things like that. And I'd had my AMH tested and it was 9.5, which is great for my age. And then we had the discussion around, well, maybe we'll start to not try, but not be careful, I guess. And nothing was happening. And I didn't know if that was because things weren't lining up, obviously, when he was home, or if there was a problem. And then we had my AMH tested again, and it had dropped from 9.5 to 2.5 in a year. And my doctor was like, that's a little bit concerning. And I remember leaving the appointment and I was like, oh my God, we can't have kids. And we both just started calling fertility doctors on what we could do and stuff like that. And obviously with Mitch only being home 3 weeks at a time, the IVF timeline is not kind at the best of times. And it's not kind when there's not 2 of you in the country, let alone in one address sort of thing. So there was a clinic we really wanted to go to on the Gold Coast, who we ended up with eventually, but we couldn't get into them. It was this 13, 14-week wait, and we just didn't have time. And we found another clinic that we went to, and our journey started there.
When you did make that decision to start trying to conceive, what were your conceptions around that? Like, what did you think that might look like for you?
There was no red flags for either of us. Mitch had a few health problems. He's had a couple of 3 different types of cancer and things like that, but that was all resolved. So it wasn't anything that we thought would matter. I'd always had painful periods, but was told that was what was meant to happen. I feel like was put on birth control early because I had painful periods and those type of things, but I had no other symptoms or anything like that. As I said, AMH was really high, really good for my age at the time when it was tested. And then when it was retested, we just wanted to know, is there a reason that we're not falling pregnant? And when it had dropped so much in a year, we were like, oh, there's something wrong. But I think we both, like anyone, you're told at school, if you have sex, you'll fall pregnant. Little do you know, it has to be at a certain day and all these other things. So no, we had no idea at the start that it was going to be a problem for us.
How long were you trying naturally before you decided to seek medical advice?
As soon as we got the result from my doctor that my AMH had dropped, It was the next day that was a year, wasn't it? Yeah, so basically it was a year. In saying that, Mitch was only ever home for 12 weeks a year. It was a little bit difficult. So that's what we thought might have been the problem. Like, things have to line up perfectly, as we know. So we thought that might have been what it was. And then, then when we got that AMH result, we were like, oh, okay, let's do something about this.
Yeah, okay. And then just before we go into the medical side of things, what were your emotions like at that time when you did find that information out and you thought that it might not be a straightforward journey to be able to conceive?
I was a mess. I thought, oh, that's it. I'm not going to be able to have kids. I'm definitely the dramatic one out of our partnership. Mitch has got a very calm head. He can see through things. But as a girl, you're like, this should be straightforward. Why can't I do this? I've always wanted a big family. I've always wanted to be a mum. And I felt like the floor had fallen out. Little did I know the floor was going to fall out a lot worse, a lot later. But yeah, I couldn't believe that it had gone down that much in a year. And there was no lifestyle factors that had changed. Nothing like that. So yeah, it was devastating.
Yeah, for sure. And did you make any lifestyle changes as well in that time that you were trying to conceive?
No, I didn't think it was a problem. I'm not a big drinker. I don't smoke, don't do drugs, don't do anything like that. Eat healthy, go to the gym, all of those things. So I didn't think I needed to.
Okay, so then you've made the decision that you want to go and get support with your fertility. What steps were involved to get there and when you started?
Yeah, so we found a clinic in Brisbane. They were a bulk billing clinic. So they sent us for a whole heap of bloods for both of us, tested sperm, confirmed the AMH level, those type of things. Didn't do anything else. They didn't do any type of scans, any laps, anything like that. It was a bulk billing doctor. So in hindsight, that should have been a bit of a red flag from knowing what I know now, but it wasn't. I remember actually Mitch was in hospital. He was having a tumour removed from his liver and my period was late and we were about to start IVF and I was like, this is going to be it. We're actually going to be pregnant and we're not going to have to worry about it. And we've done a test in the hospital. And if you're trying to fall pregnant, you know that as soon as you do a test, your period comes within like 10 minutes. That's exactly what happened. We were like, okay, now we're all in. We're about to start this journey. So we'd got the all clear. As I said, sperm was fine. It was just wasn't happening. I think it was put down to my age was what they'd said at that time. So we went straight into our first round. We got 3 embryos. By day 2, we had 2. By day 5, we had 1. We transferred that embryo and that resulted in our first miscarriage. I remember Mitch was actually home. There was quite a few times when obviously he was away and stuff like that, but he was home for that egg collection. And I remember we saw the doctor. They gave us a list of these medicines to take. Went and got those. They had to be kept in the fridge and some had to be, all of those things. And it was just a pamphlet. There was no sort of guidance on what to use, how to use, what it was going to do, what it could do to me mentally or physically or emotionally or anything like that. It was just very much, here, take these, call us on day 1 and we'll tell you what to do. I don't feel like compared to when I changed clinics, it was very different. But at the start, it was very much, this is what you need to do. This is the only way you can conceive. This is the only way you'll have a baby. Here's the drugs you need to take. Call us when your periods start.
Yeah. And then so you had a fresh transfer.
Yeah, we did a fresh transfer.
And then you will wait and then the clinic. So what happened next after that?
After that, we had our first miscarriage, early miscarriage at like 6 weeks. That was heartbreaking, as they all are. I think the first question people always ask is, how far along were you? And I'm like, does that matter? I don't feel like that matters.
That matters.
No. But Mitch was away. I found that difficult as well because it went from knowing what was happening, getting confirmation that's what happened. And then I need to call him, who's on another time zone in the middle of the night, to say, we've just lost a baby. So we recovered from that and we went into another cycle. But bulk billing clinics are very different to full price clinics, we've found out, and around protocols.
Could you talk about that maybe a little bit for anyone who might even just be thinking about which clinic to go with, if you have some knowledge on the differences between them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did 8 rounds at a bulk billing clinic. I think if you are doing IVF and you have a very straightforward case, and it's really hard because I don't think anything's ever straightforward with IVF, but I think if you perhaps you're a same-sex couple and you have a very healthy AMH, it could be a little bit different. But if you're a little bit complex, it's hard because they can't prescribe a lot of things for you. They can't do a lot of things. They can't do PGTA testing of your embryos, a lot of those type of things. So we did 8 rounds.
Yeah.
I was told at round 4, after another loss and a failed transfer, by a different lady who did my scan, oh, do you know you have adenomyosis? And I was like, oh, I have endometriosis. And she was like, no, you have adenomyosis. And I was like, what's that? I had no idea what that was.
What is that?
Yeah, so endo grows outside Adeno grows inside. So it's very different. She said to me, I'd be shocked if you didn't have endo as well, but you definitely have adeno. And I'm probably saying it wrong, so I just call it the short name. But yeah, it's adenomyosis. Yes. So it grows inside the uterus. And I was like, what's that? And she's like, next time you see your doctor after your next transfer, speak with him about it. Because, it was day 9. So we were about to go in and do another egg collection. Yeah. We'd done another transfer that failed and I had raised it with him. And he was like, oh, yeah, I see on the notes that you've got that. We probably should send you for an MRI. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, basically it'll be very hard for you to fall pregnant. And that was what he left us with. And I've walked out and Googled, as you do, and it says that the only way to completely get rid of adeno is a hysterectomy. So I'm left with that information.
So you've gotten up to your 4th egg collection, and they haven't done one scan on you to check for even like endometriosis, PCOS, any of those diagnoses?
Nothing like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And your doctor didn't even, like, when you had your initial referral to the fertility clinic, your doctor didn't check any of those things either?
Nothing. Yeah. Crazy.
And I mean, you don't know what you don't know, though, when you just think that this is, it's a standard protocol and you don't need one. Right?
You're scared, you're emotional, and you're all these things, and you just don't know. So we went and had an MRI. The MRI came back that said it was mild endo and severe adeno. So we went to the doctor again to ask what happens. And his answer to me again was, you will struggle to fall pregnant. You'll probably continue to miscarry. And Mitch is very much here's a problem. What's the solution? How do we fix this? And he said so nonchalantly that his solution was, we'll just do a few more rounds. We'll bake some eggs. Then we'll put you into menopause. And what happens when you go into menopause is it strips your body from the estrogen, which starves the adeno, and the adeno will disappear. So after 6 to 12 months of you being in menopause, we'll bring you back out again, and then we'll do a transfer and you should be fine. And that was exactly how he said it to me.
My God.
Exactly how.
How did you process that? And was there a conversation of, do you want to do this? Or was it just kind of like...
That was the answer. That was the only way we would fall pregnant. That was his answer.
Okay.
And being an adult in your 40s, you're very scared of menopause anyway, right? Yeah. Especially. So,
wow, that would have been really overwhelming. Just to go back, so at this point, you're up to your 4th egg collection. Does that mean you'd had 3 transfers?
Yes.
Before that? Yeah. And all of them been successful, or had, like, you mind just going over?
Yeah.
So 1 was successful and 2 had failed. But then you were moving into your 4th with information saying that you probably won't get pregnant.
Yeah.
Or you'll have a miscarriage if you get pregnant. Okay. So with that information, was the choice now to just get as many eggs as possible?
Yeah. So it's continued to that. I think in the next round we went into, I had a problem with my ovary, ended up in hospital with like a contorted ovary, and then my right ovary just stopped producing for a while. So it was just all on the left. So I added that in. I felt like I was it was just like a number. Like I'd just go to the clinic, they'd give me the same drugs. We'd go in, we'd do an egg collection, we'd get a small amount of eggs that would turn into a few embryos. And it was just rinse and repeat. That's what we just kept doing. Yeah.
Okay. So you did 4 in a row?
Yeah, so we did 4.
Yeah. After the 4, how many embryos did you have?
So we ended up with 11 in total after 8 rounds. 15 in total.
All right. So how's your emotional mental health and how is your relationship at this point?
I'm an absolute mess. I am completely controlled and consumed by all of this. This was my life. Yeah. It was all I spoke about. Mitch was still away. He's only been back still in the country for the last year. He was still doing FIFO, and it had a massive toll on our relationship because every time I would talk to him, it was never good news. I was depressed. I was emotional. I was counting embryos. We've got this many days till we start this cycle again. Look how bruised I am. Look at, all of that. And there was never good news from my end to tell him. And he's on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
It took a toll on us, but we've always had a great relationship. We're very strong and, we're still here. But it was definitely hard. We had to have conversations on, we're just not going to talk about IVF today. Yeah, because that's what was happening. And I have some really great friends. I would make plans and then there'd be the day of the plans and I'd be like, I can't come just because I wanted to stay in my house, in my bubble. And my focus was on how on earth do I have a baby, or how on earth can I fall pregnant and stay pregnant and have a baby? Like that was my complete emotional state.
Yeah. Okay. And throughout that time, you didn't seek any additional medical advice from anywhere? You just kind of kept going with the process?
I definitely kept going with the process. There was no option. I mean, it wasn't offered to me. I didn't ask for it either, to be clear, but it was never suggested, like, should you have some counselling? Is there someone you want to talk to? None of that was mentioned at the clinic or anything like that. I didn't seek it either. I don't know if it definitely wasn't available, but it wasn't something that I tried to look for or was openly offered. And yeah, we just sort of were going through this stage of let's just get these embryos.
You've done 8 rounds. Yeah, from when you went to the fertility clinic, what's the time frame at the moment? How long has
So this is a year and a half.
Year and a half. So you got your 15 embryos and you've decided now's the time to do the medication for menopause. Do you want to talk through?
We'll talk through that. I had my appointment. Mitch was on FaceTime and the doctor was like, right, so what we'll do is we'll start now. And I was terrified. I don't think I'd actually had the conversation with Mitch on how scared I was. And he definitely didn't have it with me on what his concerns for me were. And I left the clinic and he called me and he was like, it's your body, but this just doesn't feel right. I think we should get a second opinion. So we did. We sought a second opinion and it was the clinic that we ended up with, Dr. Keong at the Centre of Reproductive Medicine on the Gold Coast. So I went to him, got my appointment, walked in with like stacked information for him, my MRI results, all this stuff, gave it to him. And I started to open up and cry. And he just put his hand up and he said, let me guess, they want to put you into menopause. And I said, yes. And he said, I'd love a man to actually have to go through that to see what that feels like. We won't be doing that. That's the last case resort. And I just burst into tears. And he was like, we need to do a lap. And I was like, when can you do that? He said, are you busy Friday? And it was Wednesday. So I went in and had a lap with him on the Friday. He removed stage 3 endo, which they'd originally told me was just mild. He wasn't too focused on the adenomyosis. He's like, we can fix this. Like, we can do other things. We need to focus on egg health and let's get you off gluten. Let's get you off dairy. Let's do all these other lifestyle changes. Let's give you some supplements, all that type of stuff.
Yep.
So that was a relief. And then I remember I called Mitch and I was like, this man will give us our family. Like, I know he will. Like, he was just so against everything this other doctor had said. And I'm so, so thankful that we got a second opinion from him.
Yeah.
We then went and we moved our embryos to him, all 15, because he's like, oh, if you've got all these embryos, just move them. We probably won't have to do any more egg collections. We moved the embryos, which takes a week. So in the IVF world, that's a year. That's what it feels like because everything's so scheduled on when everything needs to be done. Day comes that they're going to test all the embryos. And they call me to say, we've defrosted all 15. We've lost 4 in the thaw. So we're down to 11.
Wow. Were you informed that could happen?
I did know there was a risk, but they say that it's like very low, very, very small.
Yes, I thought. Yeah.
So then they're doing PGTA testing to basically make sure that there's enough chromosomes or the embryos are chromosomically correct to be able to stay in life and that there's no major abnormalities. And that can take 3 to 5 weeks. So the testing goes off, come back. And I remember I was like, I went for a walk one morning. I was like, these embryos would have to be back by now. And the next minute, the clinic called me. She was like, hi, Miranda. And she said, okay, the results of your embryo. She said, one embryo has come back with a mosaic testing result. And I was like, I have no idea what that means. And that means that it's come back with some normal cells and some abnormal cells. So if we wanted to use that embryo in a transfer, we would need to undergo genetic counseling first, because what could happen is the normal cells or normal chromosomes could morph into abnormal or vice versa.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I said, and the other 10? And she said, the other 10 have all come back abnormal. None can be used.
Oh my gosh.
So we lost everything.
How did that feel in that moment?
I collapsed to the ground. I was walking and I fell to my knees.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It was Australia Day, actually, that happened. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. That we'd finally found a doctor who listened, who wanted to do tests, who wanted to do all these things. And we'd lost everything. We'd lost a year and a half. Like what put strain on our relationship, what put strain on our friendships, what put mentally, financially, emotionally, all these things. Like my physical body, you know, I'd put on so much weight from all drugs and all these things. It was for nothing.
Yeah.
And then my brain went to, imagine if we stayed at that other clinic. I could have done a year of menopause and then we could have done 11 transfers or 15 because we know the results from 11. Had 11 miscarriages or had 11 failed transfers or both.
If they put you into menopause, can they reverse it, or it's like that's it? They would have been your 15 eggs and that was it.
Well, they say that they put you in and then they reverse it, but I don't know how that works. And when you're at an older age, that's terrifyingly scary. And I remember asking the question, why do we need so many embryos? And he said, oh, well, just in case things don't work out properly. And in my head, that was just in case we can't bring you back out of menopause. I don't know if that's medically it, but that's where my brain went.
Yeah. And I guess even if you're another year and a half down the track, you don't know what your AMH is going to be like at that point as well. So,
yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's
So
so lucky.
we lost everything.
Yeah, which is awful.
Awful. Yeah. So then we started again. So we different protocol, different drugs. The difference between the care at a bulk filling clinic and a private clinic was crazy. The different things they could put me on. I was on human growth hormone. I was on a whole heap of things that weren't even an option.
Was there any kind of formal diagnosis that they said might have been the reason that your embryos weren't genetically viable or like had that loss earlier on?
Yeah. So Dr. Ong is one of a very few fertility specialists in Australia who believe in the HLA DQ alpha gene. So I don't know if you've ever heard of that. And we came back and it's a partial match. So that means 50% of the embryos that we created, my body would then see it as something it already had and would destroy it. So you can either be a partial match or a full match. You have to be a match. You'd rather be a partial. Makes it a little bit easier. But the things that we then started to do, one of the treatments that we then started to do is called LMIT, where Mitch goes in, they take 9 vials of his blood, they remove the white blood cells, they then inject it back into me. So that you go on an entire regimen of immunosuppressant drugs. There's some really hectic things that they then prescribe to you to just wipe out my immune system so my body can't fight the embryo. And yeah.
Wow. This all in as alongside getting ready for an egg collection, or do you do all of this first and then you prepare for the next egg collection?
Yeah. So we went in then and we did 3. I went on human growth hormone and testosterone cream, where I'd have to rub testosterone cream onto my stomach every night. And we went in and did 3 back-to-back egg collections. And from that, we sent off 7 embryos for genetic testing and 6 came back normal. And then 4 were unable to be tested. And when they're unable to be tested, it just means that the cells aren't even on each side and it'll cause more damage to the embryo. So after 3 rounds at a different clinic with different drugs, we were back at our 11 embryos again that we had.
Wow.
Yeah.
9 days, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's cozy.
And then we started the protocol for the DQ alpha. So that has to be done with the blood. That has to be done twice within a 4-week period. So that had to match up again with when Mitch was in the country. And then you start on a whole heap of steroids and a whole heap of other things. And then we commenced our first transfer and it stuck. And she's now almost 11 months old, which is incredible.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Little Elsie.
Little Elsie.
Yeah. So, did you want to just take me back? So obviously when you found out how many embryos you've got at your new clinic and you've got 6 ones that are viable, like how are you feeling at this point? You must have been exhausted.
Yeah.
And then also what time frame are we looking at here? Because obviously all of these things, like it sounds like it's month by month, but all of these things take a lot of time in the IVF world and the testing and the waiting for things. So yeah, where are you guys at?
So we're just about to, Elsie, when we fell pregnant with her, it was 3 years and 2 months from when we'd done our first egg collection that we fell pregnant with her.
Yeah.
So we're a way down the path. And we had it sort of to ourselves for a long time. There was only a few people that we told. My work was very supportive. They knew quite a lot of it and they were fantastic because obviously you've got to have things off and those type of things. But yeah, we sort of kept it to ourselves for a little bit. And then it was, I needed more support. Not that I wasn't getting that from Mitch at all, but he wasn't there. So we started to tell more people. I was emotionally exhausted. I felt like a shell of a person. It wholly and solely consumed me. And I think it was because nothing was working. Nothing was going right. So I needed to find answers. And you search long enough on Google and you'll find anything. So then it was finding support pages and other people who had been through this and what have you done differently? Those type of things.
Like, I mean, with IVF in general, like it is all consuming. It's your entire life. It's all you think about. You've got your appointments, thinking about like what your body's going to do next. And then each stage is just, it's also consuming. So I can't imagine doing it for that long, plus everything else that you guys went through. Like it would have been really challenging. When you found out that you were pregnant second time, How did that feel? What were the early weeks of pregnancy like? Were you just ecstatic, or did you have feelings of anxiety? What was it like for you?
Over the moon ecstatic. That can absolutely exist alongside crippling anxiety.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think until Elsie was out of my body did I let myself actually believe I was pregnant. I'm going to say blessed because at least I had HG, so I vomited every day with Elsie until the day she was born. But it was a thing for me that I was like, if I'm still vomiting, she's okay. And I know that sounds crazy, but I don't think I ever relaxed to let myself completely enjoy that I was pregnant, because I was just so scared that the bad news was just about to come, because it always did. Something always went wrong. Something always fell apart. Something was always happening next, and it never did. But I think that's now progressed into after being pregnant too. Like, my anxiety now from IVF is huge for everything.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that you don't think about or don't know or don't understand that can happen when you are so used to hearing bad news that you think everything's bad news.
Yeah, for sure. How did it feel when she was on your chest?
Oh.
What were those emotions like? And did any of that anxiety carry on? Like, obviously you've got a lot of anxiety around IVF, totally understandable, and conception, but in terms of being a mum and postpartum, did that anxiety carry on to the way that you felt about Elsie?
Yeah, when she was put on my chest, I think it's still one of the greatest moments of my life. I remember looking at Mitch and seeing his face, and I wish we didn't have to wait so long, but I'm glad we did, because when we got her, right, like, it made sense. A friend said to me, she was always coming home to you. It was just on her timeline. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Like, she was always coming home, but I sometimes wish she'd make us fight for as long as she did. But yeah,
Sure.
the postpartum anxiety for me has been awful. I went walking the other week and a helicopter went above me, and I had these visions of it was going to shoot me and she was going to be left on the side of the road. It's not a nice place at all. I definitely wasn't like that before.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and then in recently, you and Mitch have decided that you want to try for another baby.
Yeah.
So did you want to just talk us through your most recent transfer, if you're comfortable doing so?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd spoken to Dr. Ong. He always knew that we wanted more kids. I mean, if I had my way, I'd have 50 of them if I could, which is pretty set on 2, I think. Maybe I'd be getting to 3, but I think he's pretty set on 2. So we spoke to Dr. Ong and just sort of said, like, what do you think? And he was like, let's try sooner rather than later. It took us a while to get her. So we went through the exact same process. We did the LMIT, we did the same drugs, we did everything the same. We did the transfer, and you're pregnant until proven otherwise. And then I didn't test last time with Elsie. We didn't test because Mitch wasn't here, and, I didn't want to face a negative test on my own. So we got the call from the clinic. Anyway, it got to around about day 8, and I was like, I want to do a test. And I've never seen such a negative test in my life. And I was just like, we're back here again. And I have friends that have had tested negative on the morning of beta and then have been positive. So Mitch was like, it could still be there. And you just knew it wasn't. And I messaged the clinic, and because you're on quite a cocktail of drugs for this DQ alpha, it's steroids for 3 weeks other than just your progesterone and things like that. And I called them, and they let us go in a day early to do beta results. And they're like, it could still be positive. I'm like, yeah, it still could. And they called. And I think for that brief moment when they called, I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to give me good news. And then she was like, oh, unfortunately, it wasn't. And then Mitch had gone out, and I had to call him. And I was just like, and even he said the same. He was hoping that just for that one rough second that perhaps it was just too early. So I think that we're both gutted, and the only change for us this time was that I was still breastfeeding, which was safe for me to do. So I actually checked with, there's a doctor by the name of Rodney White who works out of Melbourne, who is a fantastic help for women who are breastfeeding. If you're on any type of medication, you can call him and tell him what you're on, and he'll let you know what's safe and what's not safe during breastfeeding. And it's public service. You can just call him.
Yeah, we might put that in our show notes.
Yeah. So I called him just to make sure that with all the cocktails of things, I was absolutely fine. He was like, yep, no problem. But that was the only difference. So we spoke to Dr. Ong, and he said, for your next transfer, I recommend that you need to stop breastfeeding. And I think that devastated me more because, and I'll probably cry on this bit, sorry, that was the only thing I could do without anyone's help. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
we needed help to fall pregnant. I ended up having to be induced because we were losing fluids. Our waters didn't break naturally or anything like that. But 5 minutes after she was born, she fed. And she's a little chubby bubby, and she continued to feed and has fed very well. So that was a really hard bit. So that's the space that we're in now, because I was on all the steroids. I have to wean off those steroids as well. So they're still weaning. I'm still taking some drugs from the FET because we have to wean off those as we're trying to wean off breastfeeding to then prepare for another transfer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know there's, fed is best, absolutely, but it's a tough one to.
Yeah, of course. So it's something that you want to do when you're ready to. You don't want to have to be told, when that has to happen. Like, it's a personal choice. So that would be really tough. If breastfeeding wasn't in the picture, would that mean that you couldn't kind of do like a month by month transfer? Would you have to wait to wean off the drugs and then go again? And it's still times like that.
Yeah, so I did ask that question. I asked if we could have done a back-to-back, and they were quite happy for us to do a back-to-back transfer. But because we're going to pull out the breastfeeding, they aren't. So
You only give yourself time to do that. I'm so sorry you've gone through all of it.
I think me too, I was like, oh, it's going to happen the second time. Like, it'll just be easy. And I think you hear so many people have said to me, and I know it comes from the nicest place possible, but so many people have said things like, oh, your body knows what to do now. It'll be easy. And I'm like, my body always knew what to do. It just wouldn't name. Let's do it. I hope that anyone that's maybe listening can take anything from that. I know people are coming from a good place, but sometimes that's not how it's received when you hear things like that. For someone who's struggling with fertility and to then hear, oh, but now your body knows what to do. It doesn't matter if you miss this cycle because there's always next. Well, it does matter. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you are in any kind of fertility journey, like time, a month feels like a lifetime, and it can be absolutely devastating to be told you need to wait a month. So I think that's another thing that people don't quite understand if they're not having any kind of fertility issues or on a journey like this. Is there anything else you just wanted to say that maybe you've been, like, someone has said to you that you just think was not helpful? And obviously no one ever means malice when they say things, but I think it's just a really good kind of education piece for people to know, like, what might not be the right thing to say to someone going through something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. My hairdresser actually said to me before our last transfer, she knew that we were having the transfer because I wanted my hair done and we didn't want to do it in the 2-week wait or anything like that type thing. And she said to me, do you want me to check on you, or do you want me to leave you alone, or do you want me to reach out? What support can I give you? And 3.5 or 4 years later from when our journey first started, that was the first time anyone had sort of asked that. And that question alone was incredible to me because I was like, no, you know what? I'd like you to reach out. And I know a lot of the time people just don't know what to say, but just for her to have that, just for her to ask that question really meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
And that really hurt me. And I know there was no malice intended, but when Elsie was born, a friend sent me a message and said, oh, you're now finally a mum. And she has a couple of kids. And in my head, I was like, yeah, I am. But I was like, I've actually been pregnant and lost more babies than you've given birth to. And I think a lot of people just see the physical bit at the end. They don't understand the bit that you go through and the losses that you have along the way. And whether it was a miscarriage or whether it was an embryo loss or whether it was a failed transfer, they're all actually things that you, in that moment when that embryo freezes or that embryo is transferred, you're imagining that life already. You're actually already picking out names and thinking what they're going to look like on their 5th birthday and looking at that first birthday party and all of those things. A loss is a loss in the IVF world. And I think that one's a tough one. I think if you don't walk through this path, you don't know. And I am both so grateful for my friends that have never had to go through this, but I'm also so envious that they've never had to go through this.
Yeah.
So I think it's more just around, just because you don't see a baby doesn't mean that someone hasn't lost a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You grieve every time and you grieve the loss of that baby, whether it doesn't matter when you lose it.
Yeah.
It could be, it could be, it feels exactly the same.
Yeah.
You go through the same grief. So yeah, really well said. I just wanted to chat more around your full journey now.
Yep.
I guess going through IVF over a long period, has that changed the way that you view your body or identity at all?
Yeah. I don't know whether it's because I'm postpartum too, but I feel like such a stranger in my own body. Yeah, I think postpartum has a lot to do with that as well. But Yeah, I definitely don't recognize it anymore. I'm proud of it. Like, I know I shared a photo with you of Elsie surrounded by all the needles that it took to get her, and I'm so proud of that. Then I'm so mad at myself too that, did I do something wrong? Was it a lifestyle choice I made when I was younger? Did I eat too much gluten? Did I, all of those things that I think I'll always blame myself in some way that this is the journey that we had to take, whether it was my fault or not. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that IVF has changed in the way that I see myself and my body, and I'm proud of it, but I'm also mad at it, if it can be that at all once. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And throughout your journey, was there anything that you leaned on, or how did you cope with everyday life throughout this process? Because it is also consuming, but you still have to show up to work and show up for friendships and your relationships. So how did you manage it throughout that time?
I don't know if I did. I mean, I think I did. But yeah, as I said, I've got a couple of friends that one of my really close friends that I work with, she was fantastic and work was really great. And she'd be like, let's just go for a walk, or let's just do this, or let's do that. I've got two other really close friends. And as I said, I'd make plans and it'd be the day of plans. And I'd message them and be like, oh, something's happened, or make some excuse up because I just didn't want to leave the house. Yeah. And since Elsie's been born, like there was a few times that I was very aware of it and I'd reach out and I'd be like, guys, I'm really sorry. I'm a shit friend. I've done this. And they're like, it's okay. We know you're going through stuff. But I think that's testament of the friendships that I have. But yeah, I don't know how well I actually handled it. I think you're on autopilot. You just get up, you do it, and you probably have all these things inside you that eventually you let out. And I think when she was born, that was healing. A lot of them came out, but I know a lot of people don't get that in the end. So yeah, I'm not sure how to manage that. But I think that I hold a lot of guilt too. We lost Mitch's dad 3 weeks before Elsie was born. And I think a lot of guilt that I have is around like, if only my body did it earlier, she would have been here earlier. Yeah, I know, but it's just, there's things that you put yourself through that you just, because it consumes you. It takes up every single part of you. And yeah.
So throughout the past 3.5 years, or when you were kind of really in the trenches of IVF, did you find anyone you could connect with, or did you kind of isolate yourself throughout the journey?
Yeah, I isolated myself quite a bit. I have one good friend. We walk through this together. She's actually having a transfer today, which I know she wouldn't mind me saying because she's not identifiable, but we've gone through that together, a lot of that. But there was a support page for the doctor that I go to for Dr. Ong. He has a support page on Facebook that's just for patients. And that was probably the best one, because that's when we're able to write to each other and have those conversations. But outside of it, I had one friend going through it, but I know lots of other people, but no one else that is close. So you bottle it up, you study, you learn things, you learn how to advocate for yourself, and you ask questions, and you hope you find something like this.
Yeah, for sure. And just around that like advocation piece, is there anything that you wish people knew if they were starting out this journey, like certain questions they should be asking? Because obviously you went through quite a long process with one fertility clinic and they, didn't do a thorough investigations. Is there any advice that you would have for anyone, even just making a decision of who they're going to go with and might be entering the journey now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing would be make sure you have skills up to find out about endo and adno. Yeah. Always ask for a second opinion. I think Dr. Ong is the greatest doctor ever, but he's a big advocate for ask a second opinion. If you're not comfortable, ask the question. Like, this is your journey. This is your life. That's definitely a big one for me. I know that this is a very expensive space, and Mitch and I talk all the time, and the hard part is it's pay to play, right? Like, if you can afford it, you can do more tests and you can do more things. Yeah. But just because there is a cheap bulk billing option doesn't necessarily mean that's the right option for you. So it's just an appointment cost to get a second opinion. Yeah. And that would be my first thing. Definitely, if something doesn't sit right, it's probably not right.
Yeah. And then is there anything that you wish was spoken about more, number one, in the IVF fertility space, and then number two, in regards to pregnancy loss or loss in the fertility world as well?
I think PGTA testing is something that needs to be spoken about more. I think more people understood that they could get their ovaries tested, that could provide a bit of peace of mind and prevent things like that. That's definitely a big one for me. As I mentioned before, that every loss is a loss. That's the biggest thing for me. When you hear the question around, oh, how far along were you when you lost it? I'm like, that doesn't actually mean much. That bit doesn't matter at all. And to hold space for people that are going through that. Another friend did say to me, I think we're about 1.5 years in, I don't understand why you're not pregnant. You're doing IVF. And I'm like, yeah, but we could get to the end of this and we could have to make a decision and go, you know what, we might have to try a donor, or it might have to try this, or it could just not happen for us. And I think that's a misconception for a lot of people too. They think, oh, you're doing IVF, you're going to fall pregnant. No, that's not going to happen yet. So I think, they're the things for me, that every loss is a loss. Everything doesn't always work out, and people need to understand that more.
Do you just have any last final words or advice for anyone who might be starting out their fertility journey, or just in general, anything else you wanted to add to our conversation today?
I think if you're listening to this, it's either because you're going through this or you know someone that is. So just know that you matter and your feelings are valid and you absolutely matter, but you are so brave for going through this. I also think one big thing for me is what our partners go through, whether that be your husband or your boyfriend, or if you're in a same-sex relationship. This is really hard on them. And I don't think enough attention is actually given to that. A partner's job to be strong for you and things like that, but they're actually going through this too. And I don't know how much support is there for them as well, especially in the case of if it's male infertility or something like that's causing it. I think we always focus on the girl and what she needs. But that's a big one for me. Hold space for each other. You and your partner are in this together. And I just know that if you're fighting, it's the situation. It's not you guys. That's my biggest thing too. And reach out. My DMs are open if people have questions, if they want to know anything else. I'm happy for anyone to message me and ask questions and stuff like that. And I guarantee a question that you're thinking, someone else has asked beforehand. So you ask that question. Someone over you has the answer. I hope that maybe there's someone listening that if you've had a couple of miscarriages and things like that, and no one's tested you for DQ alpha, as I said, there's not many doctors that believe in it. It's a bit controversial. I understand that, but I think that was definitely the missing piece for us. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
No
much.
worries. Thank you.
Been so brave. I'm going to be absolutely rooting for you, and
I'll let you know how we go.
please follow up, because we'd love to, where maybe we can catch up again in a year's time and have a conversation and see where you're at. That would be amazing.
Awesome. And congratulations on your pregnancy too. I hope it's all going well.
Oh, thank you so much. Super. A lot of gratitude, that's for sure.
And that's the thing, I think people don't understand too. You can be so happy for someone and hold space for someone and still be so, I don't even know the words inside, but it's wonderful to see someone who's going through something and they get a win, and we have to celebrate.
Yeah, for sure.
All the way.
For sure. I guess I will just ask, because a friend did ask me this. I assume throughout the time that you've gone through all of this, there has been pregnancy announcements around you, right? Your friends. What do you think is the best way for you to receive that information for someone that might be listening and might not know how to tell a friend that's going through something like this?
Yeah, I'm a big chatter. I love to chat. I'm a big cheerleader for my friends too, though. So I'd prefer you to call me, message me, text me and say, hey, I just want you to know this is what we're going to come up. One of my really good friends who I went to school with, we actually lost contact, found contact again through an IVF page. And she messaged me and she was like, I've just found out that I've spontaneously fallen pregnant after many years of infertility. She said, I just wanted you to know because my husband's going to put it on Facebook and I wanted you to see it first. And that meant a lot to me. Yeah. When we were in the middle of everything, I think we just lost all our embryos. Mitch's brother, they fell pregnant and they were pregnant with twins. And I remember the day that they told everyone was the day that we'd just come back from the clinic. And my sister-in-law was so concerned on how we were going to feel. And we were like, no, we are so happy for you. Are we envious? Absolutely. Do we wish it to us? Absolutely. But this is your journey. This is your, no one else can put their life on hold for us. But just hold space for us and know that while it might make me upset, and I'm not crying because I'm upset at you, I'm crying because I'm still grieving something that I don't have yet. But I'm so happy for you.
This has been The Space Between Two Lines. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and register on our website to share your story. The link is in the bio. Until next time.